You're listening to the Cricket Podcast.
Hello everyone and welcome to the Cricket Podcast, where I am very excited to say thank you, Jack, for that lovely display of support. Very excited to say that we are joined by an old friend who we've not seen for a long time. He's been off gallivanting away in the subcontinent, doing very important things, helping people raise bits of wood in order to claim important cricketers for their franchises. And obviously, I'm going to skip over Ross and Jack. They're here too. We don't care about them. Dan Weston. Dan's back. How are you, Dan?
I'm awesome, thanks, Max. Yeah, brilliant to be back on. It feels like it's been ages. So yeah, buzzing to be back on. Hopefully we can have a good chat over the next hour or so. Wonderful
stuff. Obviously we won't be able to pick his brains about the IPL, but suffice to say, he had a good time. So we'll leave it at that. As I said, also joined by Ross and Jack. Ross, how are you doing?
I'm great. I mean, to be in the company of a Punjab king. I mean, that is what more do you want, right? That is what dreams are made of. And it was amazing watching the IPL auction, Dan, and just being able to see kind of you in your element and actually be in that position. We were like almost fangirling over an analyst being at an IPL table, and you're just a bit like, what has my life become? But honestly, mate, we were so proud of you. I think it was amazing to see you there.
Thanks, mate. Thanks so much, mate.
And Jack, how are you doing?
Yeah, I'm all right. I left my microphone at my girlfriend's house, so I'm lingering in the background. Yeah. I didn't want to miss the big occasion, did I? But no. I also don't want to talk too much and ruin the show. So
no, you sound absolutely fine. No worse than David Painter when we interviewed him when he was in his car.
Yeah, we've come a long way since those days.
All right, well, Max, what's on the slate today?
We've got a bit of a rundown of the India-West Indies T20 series. Obviously, that one was a one-sided affair, but we'll be picking out the main talking points from that. We've got a bit of franchise cricket action. Have a look at, a bit of a wider look at the comparisons of the PSLs, the IPLs, the BPLs, and other L's. And we'll be wrapping up with a little bit of England chat. Have a look at the England squad selection. Get Dan's thoughts on the obvious, the elephants in the room, and see whether we all agree with what Jack and I said a few weeks ago.
We'd be remiss not to ask Dan about the 100 a little bit as well, I reckon.
And the 100, yes. But before that, Ross, it's tight. Got to get some messages out, haven't we? Messages for the listeners.
We do. We have a Patreon, and we've blitzed through the 30 member mark, haven't we? The Discord channel is on all the time, buzzing through the night, which is great. And I think if you want to join that, you've got great access to exclusive shows. You've got IPL data, literally ball by ball data of every single ball bowled in the IPL history. So you can become a budding analyst and sit at the Punjab Kings table, just like Dan Weston. I also think there's you should sign up because actually it's quite nice talking to us on Discord. We've got a couple of reviews in as well, which I'll probably read out later in the show, which are very complimentary.
You've not got them now?
No. I think have them throughout the show, right? Always tease the 5-star reviews that we've kind of got.
Let's dot the navel gazing throughout the show rather than
if we've got 3 parts, then we do need something to reintroduce the show for part 2 and 3. So
it might as well be compliments to us. And if you want to compliment us, then leave a 5-star review on Spotify, leave a 5-star review on Apple, or get in touch with the show. Obviously, if you're watching this on YouTube, hit like, hit subscribe. We are so close to 10,000. I think we're less than 100 now, Jack.
It's 100. It's exactly 100.
Well, let's say look, England's openers can't quite manage it, so hopefully we can manage to get to 100 in the next next week. That'd be great. And then follow us at Cricket Pod on Twitter and Instagram. Max, where should we start? West Indies versus India?
Yeah, I think so. 3 T20s, 3 India victories, all with slightly different teams, which was nice to see, and a few big. Debuts. A few big debuts from some guys that we absolutely love from the IPL. So where do you want to start, Ross?
I think it's probably fair to say that India actually had some pretty strong performances across the series. Ravi Bishnoi, who we've we've been a big buyer of over the last couple of years, and we kind of touched upon this a little bit in the last show, but he kind of slipped in quite nicely to international cricket, I thought. And then also the approach that India took, I thought it'd be quite nice, Dan, to ask you around, are we starting to see kind of underneath Rahul Dravid a bit of a shift in what's actually acceptable in this side? You've obviously saw in the last game, Rohit Sharma actually batting himself at number 4, so Gaikwad could come in. I know it was kind of dead and buried in terms of the series, but that flexibility is quite interesting to see. You obviously also saw Virat Kohli drop out of the side. So it would just be nice to understand where you see that going, Dan, and probably in a little bit in a while. And then also around some of the players that they've kind of picked up along the way, like Venky Iyer, good series. Is there questions around where he's coming through? Shreyas Iyer made a nice appearance and struck it over 130, which was amazing to see. So I think, we should get into a couple of those points. And then on West Indies fronts, they're again, a really, really weird puzzle, the West Indies team. Don't know. They've almost got half the picture of a jigsaw, and they have the wrong set of pieces, and then somehow it's coming together just about. So let's start with the kind of people who've impressed. So let's start with Venky Iyer. The middle order spot was Hardik Pandya's. He's been injured, but Venky Iyer's come in and done really quite well, hasn't he, Dan?
Yeah, I like him. Obviously, batting in a different role to what he does in the IPL. But I think probably his promotion has come primarily due to the fact that there's not a lot of all-rounders who can bat in the top 6 in the Indian player pool. So anyone who is kind of showing some ability tends to get fast-tracked. And we saw that here, and he did pretty well with the bat. And when he was asked to with the ball, he contributed as well with a couple of wickets and reasonable series economy. So yeah, I mean, that's nice to see someone coming in and doing a good job, and that's promising for India moving forward. I like the way that they kind of structure up a little bit more, but I still think there's a lot that they can do to work on in terms of that intent, boundary hitting, not leaving too much on the park. They had to be pretty careful though, because I think they had like Deepak Chahar or Harshal Patel at 7 in some of the lineups. So I can understand why they were going a little bit more cautious with the top 6. And we remember as well that Eden Gardens, you're looking at probably 180 minimum being a decent score batting first as well. So but there's certainly stuff to like. India getting obviously the series win 3-0, and we can talk about the West Indies later, because as you say, you suitably described them as a jigsaw puzzle with half the right pieces and half the ones from another jigsaw set. Basically, that's exactly what it is. And yeah, I mean, it's almost like even though they lost the series, it's almost more interesting to talk about West Indies than it is about India, because I watched all the games and they frustrated me a lot.
Yeah. I mean, if we finish off, because I don't think we've covered India quite significantly on the last show. So if you want to go and listen to that, then please do. But let's talk about kind of their opening options, Dan, because I'm trying to figure out what India's top 5 ends up looking like, especially with the World Cup kind of towards the end of this year. And they're trying out different options. Like Gaikwad's come in after being I always get this right, the orange cap holder in the IPL. Yeah, orange is correct, isn't it?
Yep.
Orange or purple?
Orange for batting, purple for bowling.
Correct. Kishan, Rohit's taken a position there, but they've got.
Sorry, I'm going to have to interject it. How does that help? Yeah, I thought you were going to give us like a little rhyme.
Basically, Jack, what you need to do is remember 2 things.
You said it like it helped me figure that out. I mean, the problem, obviously, is that Ross and I can't remember orange for whatever it is, and purple for whatever it is.
Just remember Harshal Patel's purple patch. There you go. How's that?
If you'd said that, then it would be purple. But you didn't say that. You just said orange for batting.
The orange cap is usually won by someone who plays for Sunrisers.
And because they're really good at batting.
Yeah. There we go. There's 2 useful things. Started badly, got better. Much like this podcast. Carry on, Ross.
That's the linear progression for us. Yeah. But I think in terms of like the options that they have, how do they start to piece that team together? Because they've got the Virat Kohli conundrum, who's he's out of form. Is he their best person to have in a T20 top 5 is probably a bigger question that I don't think people are really up for having that discussion on because it's too detrimental. But how do they start to pull all these people together, Dan?
That's the tough thing, because you would say that if there's a Kohli in a team, you don't need a Shreyas Iyer, because there's absolutely no need to have two anchor-orientated players in the same team. Now, the other conundrum is whether Gaikwad, even though he won the orange cap, is actually should be the next cab off the rank. So staying loyal to Punjab Kings, I think there's a very strong argument for Mayank Agarwal playing more in T20s for India, and also Prithvi Shaw, who I really like as well as another opener. And then Sanjay Samson in the middle order doesn't really get a game either. So there's quite a lot of players bubbling under who actually are very, very strong players, and I'm not convinced that some of the players who are getting picked are actually the best options. Don't get me wrong; they're very, very good players, but whether they're better than some of the players who are left out is another debate entirely. And yeah, unconvinced about that really. But
India have got too many pieces for the same puzzle.
Yeah, a bit like England really with their batting and T20s and white ball cricket as well. The second team would probably do pretty well too.
Yeah, well, it's that question, right? If you have Rohit Sharma, actually, you've got a similar, actually, in strike rate terms, actually a similar player to Virat Kohli, actually, in terms of that bar, and trying to fit those people in. But Kishan didn't do kind of as well as we know he can do, and I think there is that pressure on him to do better. He's now an unbelievably wealthy young man, and that comes with all kinds of different kind of pressure. But him at the top of the order, I quite like. He's good against spin. He complements where Rohit Sharma's less good. I think Suryakumar Yadav is unbelievable. Like, he was supreme in this series and showed that he can be a class above everybody. And then that middle order question, Dan, of where do you fit in Pant, Jadeja, Hardik Pandya when he's fit, Venky Iyer when he's playing. They've got great options.
Yeah, I'll find that under nice problem to have.
Let's talk about West Indies then. So when it comes to their selection and tactics, Dan, you said it frustrated you.
Yeah, very much.
I mean, there was a couple of things I pulled out of that. One, Shai Hope being anywhere near the T20 team. Find that unbelievable.
Yeah.
Two, in the last game, they went out a rate of knots in the power play and were ahead of the game, right, in chasing that total down the Indian set. I'm not sure. Typically, I want to go all guns blazing, seal the sixes, seal them. But in that moment, I thought when Deepak Chahar went down injured, they got their tactics wrong. They should have sent in Roston Chase, sent in Hold or whoever ahead of Pollard and let Pollard come in from kind of over 14 onwards kind of thing, and then try and do that. I'm not sure if that was one of the things that you kind of picked up on, Dan, and be like, no, Ross, you're an idiot. But what else frustrated you from that West Indies kind of series?
So much, because I see the ability, I see the real potential that this, or not, I wouldn't say this group have got, but the West Indies player pool have got, because there's players in the player pool who I think are a lot better than some of the players who are being picked. You throw Evan Lewis or Kenar Lewis, Shafane Rutherford and Hetmeyer into this group, and maybe Obed McCoy as a bowler as well, and you're starting to think, wow, this team could be anybody. And there was a number of things that frustrated me. So, and in my opinion, it all stems back to that game against England in the World Cup, where I remember us guys speaking about this after the game, and I said, I think they got rolled. I can't remember what it was, but it was like 80 or whatever it was. I can't remember. And I said the biggest mistake they can make now is play Roston Chase and panic and say we've got to play an anchor. Oh, okay. So they didn't just pick Roston Chase; they picked like 4 anchors or 3 anchors in each game. And I'm like, okay, so Kyle Mayers anchor, Roston Chase anchor. First game, that's 2, right? Second game, Mayers played again, Chase played again. And in the first game as well, they batted Akil Hussain at 6, which was just...
That was interesting, wasn't it?
I mean, they probably wanted... I guess they wanted 2 left-handers because he was batting with Pooran at the time against the leggies, but that was just a weird pick because he just chewed up a load of balls. And in that first game as well, that meant that Odean Smith only was able to face 4 balls, just teeing off at the end. Fabian Allen and Romario Shepherd, who are real hitters, couldn't bat either. So they didn't have to face a ball. So that was just a waste of resources. And in that first game, the anchors, Mayers, Chase, Hussain, faced 46 balls at less than a run a ball. That is a major, major, major problem. In the second game, King and Mayers hit 3 4s and no 6s in 40 balls. That's a third of your resources. When your opposition scored 25 boundaries, good luck with winning the game. Good luck with winning it. Good luck with that. You've got to hit.
Something's wrong in that, don't you? When you lose by 8 runs and you've lost 3 wickets.
Yeah, 100%.
That's just
and it was almost 2 down. Pooran got out with a few balls left.
Yeah.
So yeah, 100%. And Pooran and Powell, I thought, were exceptional in that chase, but they were left with too much to do because the anchors who are opening, those players are just not suitable for playing a high level international cricket, in my opinion. And you've got to hit almost 27% boundaries to win the boundary percentage count when you're when you have an opener score 22 or 30 balls. You just can't. It's unacceptable. You can't have that. And in the third game, they thought, I don't know what they were thinking because they chewed up balls with their anchors in the first 2 games. And they thought, I know what I'll do. I'll pick another one. Shy Hope as well. We'll throw him.
He scored at 200. I don't know what you're talking about.
Well, yeah, but you know where I'm going with that.
Yeah.
So I mean, I just don't get what they're thinking. I mean, like, they put all the way down. They don't need these anchors. It's just crazy. But
we saw that, didn't we, in the England series? I mean, we had Akil Hussain and Romario Shepherd just depositing the ball for 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And it was like, batting all the way down to 11. You got Fabian Allen coming in at 9. I mean,
I feel like that there's a structure whereby they've got the talent, they've got the raw ingredients to be a really good team, but there's some form of fear or trial by media, if you like, that if you get rolled, you're just going to get absolutely slaughtered. But the thing is that the way that they play, they're better off focusing on trying to hit 180 plus every game, and if you get rolled for 80, so be it.
It's going to happen.
Because the way that they're playing right now, with the 2 jigsaw puzzles kind of mixed in together, as you say, Ross, they're losing games like that anyway. So what we've got to lose?
So you mentioned Pooran there, and you mentioned Rovman Powell. Powell looks like some serious player. Like just watching him play, like he's in a purple patch of form at the moment. But the guy, his striking ability is unbelievable.
Yeah, and he's very fast between the wickets as well. I like him. I think there's areas of his game that he can work on that he probably is aware of. But I think, as you say, the striking ability is very, 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 very good. And Pooran obviously has had a tough year and a half. So got some runs in this, which will obviously fill him with some confidence as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, this is it. When you've got guys like that in your team and you get done 3-0 by India, who, India are a good team, but I don't think they're a great team right now.
Well, and also look at the India team that they put out, where there's no Bumrah in there.
Yeah,
no Jadeja.
No Jadeja. We're looking at a bunch of guys who are making. I mean, obviously Bishnoi bowled really well, but Harshal Patel and Deepak Char haven't played in quite a while.
Yeah. They didn't really have a lot of death bowling apart from Harshal. So there's an argument, I think, to say that West Indies definitely underperformed in this series. And I think that's solely or largely down to the selection and the strategy that they adopted in these matches.
When we were coming out of the England series, looking at how India had just done in South Africa, how the West Indies had just overcome England, we were looking at it as like this could be a defining moment for the West Indies T20 team. It could be a bit of a sticky situation for India, and obviously it turned out to be the exact opposite. I mean, I said to Ross before, I'm so confused about this West Indies side. I don't know whether they're like so close to being box office, actually a bit rubbish. I just don't know. I just don't know.
Yeah, the problem is I don't think they know either. That's the problem.
Yeah, well, there's a couple of things. Right, I think one is what their middle order ends up looking like, because in theory they've got Pooran at 3, they've got a mixture of Powell, Russell, Pollard, Holder. Maybe need another left-hander in that mix.
They've got Rutherford as well.
Right, we have Rutherford as well.
Get picked.
Yeah, and then they got, as Max, as you said, kind of got Fabian Allen down the lower middle order. So they've got options, right? And that is a pretty intimidating lineup, one after the other of 6 hitters. I think from the other side, they didn't lose this game because of their batting. As much as kind of we criticise around chewing up overs in the second game with Mayers and King or whoever it was, plenty of runs were scored by the Indian middle order, which dug them out of a hole, let's be honest. But the West Indies bowlers went round the park, and their approach and that bit was to continue bowling pace at the end of the innings. And I've got a question, Dan, around what is the question I was in? What is the optimal strategy, right, for closing out a T20 game? Because England are struggling with it at the moment. West Indies are clearly struggling with it at the moment. They are bowling pacers who are not suitable to bowling death overs in cricket, and they are getting punished for it.
Bowl Roston Chase, that's the answer.
I mean,
unplayable.
That's very true. That's very true, Ross. I think West Indies are different to England in that West Indies have got players who I think are bowlers who are definitely works in progress, but ones who do have pretty sizable upside. And that's where I differ with what you're saying, though, in terms of the batting versus the bowling, because as a team, as a management group, you should be cognizant of your ability as a bowling group, right? And effectively, your batting strategy should be dictated by your bowlers. Now, if I'm West Indies here and I'm in the management group, I would say, you know what, right? We've got these guys we don't really have a noted death bowler. We've got unproven young guys or inexperienced guys who do have upside, but they're learning on the job, right? So we need to go out all guns blazing, otherwise we're not going to win. And so you can't split the bowling and the batting and saying that they're unrelated. They're actually really related. And you look at England as well, and this is why I've said in the past, I think on this show as well, I'm not a massive buyer of Milan for England because their bowling's not good enough to indulge in a guy who's going to score a run a ball for the first 20 balls, probably.
England don't even bother with death bowling.
Well, that's the other thing. I mean, I read, I don't know how true it is, but I read somewhere that Morgan doesn't really value death bowling, which is, in my opinion, is very bizarre. I don't know how true it is, but that's what I heard. So
it was Gurney, wasn't it? Was it Harry Gurney who said that?
Yeah, I think it was actually. Yeah, it was. That was it. Yeah, and I don't know. I just think that there's a lot of improvement that teams can make, in terms of their strategy, and I'm not asking them to make every decision based on data, but I do think that there's a lot of teams who are they either don't know what they're doing or they just use hunches when it suits them.
And so what is the option there, Dan? Then so we've seen teams set up their batting for opposition bowling, right? So actually you have your decent pace hitters batting at 5, 6, 7, depending on the state of the game, right? So is there not a bit where you try and almost debunk what's happening there? So England obviously tried bowling Mark Wood in the middle overs, worked pretty effectively kind of last year, and then obviously some injuries happened with Tamal Mills, etc., and it kind of the wheels fell off. And we've seen obviously Adil Rashid for England bowl at the 20th over and get absolutely dispatched against Australia a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
So is there going to be a team that does start to use spin really effectively in those overs to close out games, or are we going to continue to see the trend of pace bowlers actually within that death over sphere?
Well, I think that there's scope for it. It's going to require teams to be pretty brave. But if you look at guys like Hasaranga, Rashid Khan, their numbers at the death from, I guess a bigger sample size than most other spinners, but still a pretty small sample size in terms of versus pacers who bowl at the death. They've got good numbers. So actually, there's probably scope for that, holding them back. And matchup wise, it makes sense if you know that the numbers 5, 6, 7, whoever it is, are pace hitters, holding back a spinner who's a positive matchup against them. is
I guess
a definite strategy.
I guess the problem there is that, like, when it comes to spinners, you think about Adil Rashid for England or Rashid Khan, like, they are in there in the middle overs. You're expecting them to go at what, like a run a ball, nothing yet, no more than 7 to get you into that position where your death bowlers can do it. And if you sort of switch that around and sort of throw in someone who whoever it is, Chris Jordan, whatever, who's been bowling at the death and has been going around and switch that up, then you're kind of risking having to get Rashid Khan to defend, 3 and over at the end. So I mean,
I think it's much simpler than this. I think it's a timing thing. You can't. There's no spin bowler in the world that is bowls quick enough that when they bowl a slow delivery, it has the batter off balance. Whereas a fast bowler can do that. And you see the best death bowlers in the world. It's all about timing and length. And you don't, Rashid Khan probably could do it. And when he plays for Afghanistan, sometimes I think in the World Cup we saw him only come into the attack in the 11th or 12th over a couple of times. So effectively, really backloading him. But he's a bit of a rare case in that he bowls really fast for a spinner, has an amazing Rovman, a really good leg break, and pitches the ball in the right spot every ball. Basically, every other leg spinner doesn't do that. So if you know the ball is coming at a certain pace or in a very small window of pace, you can just wait. And if you need 12 and over, you might lose a wicket if you miss the wrong one, but the next guy coming in knows it's the exact same equation. It's just swing as hard as you can, ball out the hand, wait a second, pitches, swing as hard as you can. It's not, whereas if you're a fast bowler, you've got the bouncer, you've got the Yorker, you've got kind of back of a length area. That's just your on-pace stuff. You can then bowl slower ball bouncer, slower ball back of the length. You got your wide Yorker. You have all these different options to keep a batter off balance and to mess with their timing. If you're no good at controlling where the ball goes, or you're a bit predictable, maybe like Chris Jordan has become, then you can get, blasted. Absolutely. But you in theory do have more options. At the death, the best death bowlers probably bowl off pace half the time, don't they? That's just not an option.
Well, that's what Tyrone Mills was in there for, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's just not an option.
The biggest difference between his slowest ball and his fastest ball. I mean, I think would be a good way of making the example of your point. That's exactly what he was there for.
Dan, anything to add, or should we move on to T20?
I mean, I agree with everything that Jack said, but I think also if you do possess a spinner who you can backload a little bit, it also requires bravery and that willingness to defy conventional wisdom. And I'm not sure, to be honest with you, a lot of management groups have got the cojones to do that. I think that, let's say for sake of argument, you're defending 12 for the last over, and you decide that the spinner is the best option, right? Mm-hmm. And the batter hits like 3 boundaries in the first 3 balls and wins the game. You're going to get slaughtered because it's an unconventional decision. And I think we see this sometimes when there's small team. I mentioned this on Twitter. I think the West Indies had this mentality a little bit, but certainly Sri Lanka did in the first few games against Australia recently. Is that they were almost resigned to losing, but they were just hoping that they weren't going to get just smashed.
Yeah, let's lose by 20 runs rather than lose by 50 runs.
Yeah, of course it makes no difference. And I think that sometimes teams make decisions because they know that a certain decision will attract less criticism than another decision. And I don't like that. And just be brave. Just don't.
Yeah, being brave isn't the
great way of keeping
a job, though, is it? That's the problem.
Well, that's the problem, because people are losing their jobs or whatever because the media are demanding it, and it's just nuts. It's truly bizarre. Just be brave, take the right option, and stay true to your principles, and be honest and say, you know what, this was the theory. Maybe it didn't work this time, but that's a sample size of 1. It could work next time, and I also think that, I think we've seen this a little bit with England as well. I think that there's either an unwillingness or a lack of eloquence from management to explain their decision making as well. And I'm not. I think if you have good communication, it really does solve a lot. We don't see it that much.
Yeah, well, it's because you need to you've got the right coloured pen to make sure that you can write "Stop being a twat" on big letters by Nathan Lemon to Owen Morgan to be like, "Stop bowling this guy. Here's the code that we're going to go with." When it comes to T20 cricket, do we want to take a quick break there, or do you want to go straight into comparing the? Yeah, quick break, and then we'll be back talking about how do you compare a T20 league to another T20 league.
You're listening to the Cricket Podcast.